in order to the outcomes that they've set for their business. This is something Nauza is going to look at, so I'm going to hand back to Nauza for the next few minutes, and then I'll come back in once he's finished with some of the other stuff. To you, Nauza.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Right, you didn't expect this now, did you? Some of you may have been there. If you haven't, put it on your bucket list. And if you get a chance to get out from the jail we're in now, one day we will. This is basically Santorini. It's a Greek island. It's an extraordinary place, and I was very lucky to visit it on a cruise. But how do you get there? Okay, so it's a large bay, but the bay is very shallow. And how do you get from that cruise ship to this point where you can take this photograph? So they've invented something called a tender boat. You might be familiar with. There's nothing to do with bids and tenders, but it's a tender, which is essentially a smaller version of a cruise ship without the beds, etc. And it essentially takes people from the cruise ship up to the harbor or a pier point. So that's a job to be done. This is an introduction to the concept of a job to be done. So how do you get from the ship to the island? Once you're on the pier, on the beach or on the pier, you've got to climb up at least 1,000 feet. Now, you can do that in one of three ways. So they've invented, you can actually climb up, not for me in terms of the very healthy person that I am, but I couldn't climb up. There is actually a fleet of donkeys. You can get onto a donkey. Again, this is more fun. Donkeys do slip down the slopes. We've seen that as well, but people don't mind it. I did. So what my wife and myself did, we took the cable car. So these are three ways to get the job done, to get from the shore up to the top of the mountain where you can really enjoy the views. Okay. So they've invented, you can see there are at least 4 services here. Plus you've got a cafe, etc. So you've got several services which essentially just simply help you to get from the ship to the top of the mountain. It's your choice. Okay, so now you're on top of the mountain. You've just taken a photograph. Everybody takes a photograph. We all do. What do you want to do with that photograph? You might want to share it with somebody. You might want to upset somebody or just tell somebody that I'm here, you're not. You might want to take an embarrassing one. People do that. I've seen that as well. We've all seen it. You might want to print one for your granny or someone else who doesn't have access to the internet. You want to make it cool. You want to add some filters. You want to get it edited. You might want it to increase your job portfolio, okay, or sort of add it to your travel blog. So these are several jobs you might want to get done with the same photograph. And then you're going to use different apps for that. Okay, so if you look at the jobs to be done, the job is the distinction here. It's not you. What you're going to do with the photograph is the job. And there you might use Facebook, iPhoto to print it out, Instagram, Flickr, Google Photos, whatever you want to use. You might even use the post box to send it to your granny. So when you think about these apps, you realize that it's the jobs to be done here, not you as a persona. And that is the point, focusing on the job to be done rather than the persona, rather than what the person looks like or what they've got to spend, etc. That comes next. The first point we're trying to make here is when you're designing your products and your services, look at the job to be done. And this is a prime example of a simple sort of a photograph, which has several aspects to it. So jobs to be done, you put together if we put together a value proposition which helps our customers in a job to be done, they will pay us for it. The job to be done can also be a large job. As an example, getting the goods from manufactured in China to warehouse to shipped, to bring it to the UK, to re-warehouse it, repackage it, add value to it, several jobs to be done. It's a whole sort of a long kind of a process. Your product, your service may not encompass the whole thing. It may just be a part of it, but that is your product. So replace the user story. Don't look at types of people, demographics, color, sex, skin, and all that. But look at jobs to be done. People are The jobs to be done is what basically drives spending. People spend money to get a job done. And jobs to be done can be more than one type. It can be, a functional, it can be a functional, it can be emotional. So functional is essentially you're catching a taxi from A to B, you're catching an Uber. Could be an emotional one. You want to arrive in style. You want to catch an expensive Uber, or you might want to hire a car. That's just a small example. There are emotional jobs as well. There are personal issues as well. How good you want to look, how it makes you look, how it makes you look better for the CV and for your job to be good as well. Then you've got a social sort of a dimension. Do you want to be seen in the right place with the right people? So there are jobs to be done, not just the type of users. I think that's a fundamental shift. If you look at I'm just going to give you an example, a practical example. If you go to the London Borough of Hounslow website, and this is a good example. If you want to tender, or you want to look at, or you want to bid, or you want to search for a service, you'll find an A to Z with a few sort of grayed out. But if you click on A, you're probably going to get 20 jobs to be done. This is the tender portal of the Borough of Hounslow. They've just put it in a format which is easily sort of accessible, but this is very typical of every council. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so the job to be done is what the council does, and they pay money for jobs to be done. They don't worry, they don't care about what the user looks like, how it's to be done, who's going to do it. The job to be done is defined in a way that there is a value to it. And if you can meet that job to be done, you will get that value in your bank account. That's the plan anyway. So let's do, I mean, before we do a small exercise, I hope you've had a chance to look at the sheets we sent you in advance. I hope you've printed them out. If not, just take a plain sheet of paper and look at the jobs to be done. Address more jobs. The more jobs you address, the more likely you are to hit on your niche, your big niche, which Nigel will talk about in a few minutes. Look at the jobs in terms of how do you look at jobs which are more important to customers. Customers might want to do a few more jobs at the same time, but which is the most important one? Which affects them in terms of pains and gains the most? Go beyond functional jobs. You and I, all of us, we spend our money not just on function, we spend it on emotions, on social value as well. Is our product or service helping a customer get their job done? And can we get it done incrementally, slightly better? There is value in that as well. And there is much more value. You'll create a bigger moat around yourself. You'll create more barriers for competition if you help a customer get a job done radically better. Okay, so if you have access to those sheets that I sent you, if you can pull out a sheet of paper or those sheets, and this is your first exercise. So look at the jobs to be done. What job are you helping your customers get done in terms of functional, social jobs, or personal or emotional ones? What is the job you're getting your customer to be done? 1 or 2 minutes. Are they functional? Are they social? Are they personal, emotional? And you might, if you understand your customers well enough, I hope you do, or you might want to research that. How often does your customer want this job to be done? How often does it occur? So let's spend a minute here on customer jobs to be done. The basic start of designing a new value proposition, a new startup, adapting your product or your service. Okay, so the customer job to be done. If you got any answers you want to put it on chat, we can discuss them as we go along. I'll highlight them to Nigel as well. Okay, so so now look at the sheet that I sent you, please, that you were sent, and look at the first one, the yellow area, which we just did just now, the jobs importance. Can you rank them according to importance to customers? What do you believe? If you put down 1 or 2 jobs or 3 jobs, what do you believe is the most important one for your customer? You might not have the answer now, but you might want to put down and put a red note to and say, I've got to do some research. Okay, so just put a number to it, 1, 2, 3, or you can use this sheet and actually write it down. And on this point, I'm going to hand over to Nigel. Over to you, Nigel.
Okay. Thank you very much. Now's a good content there and great direction for everybody to start off going in. So I'm going to look now over the next, I guess, 20 to 25 minutes, give or take, at a number of concepts, some that we've already come across, to introduce to you later on when we get into sales enablement. And the one thing I'm very conscious of when I'm doing these webinars is that we try and cover in about 4 or 5 minutes a concept that when you're live or actually with a consultancy client can take up to 2 hours to develop and actually get correct answers to. Even in the old days, and they may well come back, when we're doing live seminars, there was a lot more time to develop. So please do bear that in mind, that we're looking at high level stuff here. But Nowsa's introduced the idea of jobs to be. That's all about outcomes that customers are seeking. And it's the outcomes that you need to know. You need to know what the customer is wanting to achieve and how they're trying to achieve it. So you do need to do some research, and you need to think firstly. So here's our first concept after jobs to be done, about customer pains. So customer pains are those things that are getting in the way or stop what they want to do, stopping them at that they want to achieve. And that's why it's so important that you get to know what your customer is wanting to achieve, what their jobs to be done are, so that you can then help and work with them to discover the pains that they are experiencing. And we're going to get to a point in a few minutes where we're going to look at how you help them with that. And those pains can be in a number of areas. They can be undesired outcomes, unintended consequences. And you need to look at the effect of those consequences, which is very much a sales thing. You need to look at the obstacles that are in their way. There may be internal obstacles, there may be financial, there may be external obstacles, there may be political obstacles. And you need to take into account the risks that in what they are doing. So customers being aware of what could go wrong. And it's not just financial risks, it could be reputational risks, which could sink a business very, very quickly. So as we see up on the top left there, it says pains describe anything that annoys your customers whilst they're trying to get the job that they want to get done finished. And you know from your own business, from your own experience, that there are a lot of pains in trying to get things done. So what I want to do is follow on from Nowsa's start with the exercise. So Nowsa, if we could go to the next slide, please. So in the center there, if you like, with the red segment, start looking at the pains that you would expect your customers, your prospects, the people that you want to aim your proposition at, your product or service at. What pains are they likely to be experiencing? And if you can't do it straight away, but if you can, after the webinar, rank them in order of severity, because that will give you some idea as to where you need to focus your efforts. So we'll just take a minute to do this. It's good to be kicking off doing this. It may well be something that you come back to. So think in terms of, for your customer, what might be taking them too much time or costing them too much money? Are they making repeated mistakes? Are there any financial barriers to what they want to do? If you like, in a nutshell, what do they want less of in their business? You may even think about this as a life lesson. What do you want less of in your life? So these are customer pains, the pains that they're experiencing that are prohibiting what they are trying to achieve through the jobs to be done and the outcomes that they want to have. Okay, next slide, please, Nauza. So on the opposite side, and I think to be significantly more positive, though it is pains which will generate a lot of opportunities for you, we're looking at customer gains. So as pains were what they want less of, not surprisingly, gains are what they want more of. So there are outcomes and benefits that your customer would want and they would desire. There are things that they would expect to get, things that they want to get, things that they have planned to get, maybe in their business, maybe also in their personal life or as a consequence of what is happening in their business. And you do very quickly, when you're analyzing with a customer what's going on in their business, need to turn from pains to gains. Otherwise, you just get stuck in a bit of a negative cycle, and turning into gains is what you're wanting to achieve. We'll look at that in a minute. And these gains, these outcomes, don't necessarily have to be financial. A lot of them will be, but they don't have to be financial. They could be environmental. They could be human resources, about retaining staff. It could be about retaining and building a reputation. So these are the gains, these are the positive things that they're wanting to have as a result of undertaking the jobs to be done that Nauza described. So let's go to the exercise, please, Nauza. Next slide. Next slide, please, Nauza. Thank you. So on the right-hand side with the blue segment, we've got customer gains. And so think in terms of the gains that they may be seeking. And we're looking here in terms of evaluation at a higher level, what would be essential for them to gain? And at a slightly lower level, what would be nice to have? What would be good to have? But clearly it is those essential gains along with the extreme pains that you would be using to focus the attention that you're providing to your customers. So think as you go through this exercise, could those gains be about saving time or money? Could there be positive social consequences to what they're wanting to have happen? Could it just simply about making things easier, making their lives easier so that they've got more energy to get on with the things they want to get on with doing? So what you've got there in pains and gains is a couple of building blocks to go with the jobs to be done that are going to help you focus and find whether or not you're doing or going to do the right thing by way of your business. Okay. Okay, now so let's move on to the next slide, please. And this is about market fit. Now, what does this mean? There is a huge problem, to have a negative attitude here for a moment, with businesses, startup businesses, new products or services being put into the marketplace. And that is about 50% of them fail, and you can define yourself what success is, but about 50% of them fail because there is no market need. A lot more fail because there's no perceived market need, but we'll get into that maybe at a later stage, and that's something that sales enablement should help you with. The market fit is what you are aiming at. You are looking to align with what your customers want to achieve. And you have to make that connection. This is something you have to do, because if you don't, who is going to do that? Who's going to make that market fit happen? I can promise you, it's not the customer. It has to be you. It's your responsibility. We're going to look a little bit more about that under sales enablement as well. If you're not yet, Nauza, not yet. Thank you. If you're not getting a fit, this is an opportunity to look at your value proposition and say, does it need some design work? Take your focus off of you and put it on the customer to see where the fit is. It's not about you. So let's look at how we might achieve a market fit by exploring pain relievers and gain creators. So yes, please, Nauza, onto the next slide. And not surprisingly, the opposite of pains and gains are relievers and creators. So you need to be looking at, and you need to decide what you can supply that's going to counteract pains and going to support the gains that customers want to have. You need to be supporting the jobs to be done. You need to be helping them achieve their desired outcomes. This is both as pain relievers and gain creators. So I think what we can do here is we can go straight from this, because I'm hoping it should be obvious that you are trying to create pain relievers to counteract the pains that customers are experiencing. So let's go straight into the exercise. So next slide. Look at the central column there. Look at the central column, pain relievers. And these are things like, can you produce savings for customers or clients in terms of the time or money that they're spending? Can you make them feel better? Think in terms of what are the things are going to relieve the pains that customers are experiencing. Can you stop any negative social consequences? Can you help them eliminate risks or fears? Can you just simply help them sleep better at night? Or eliminate the barriers that they're experiencing to being able to move forward? You really should spend a lot more time than we have available this morning on this, because it's absolutely vital to the success of your business. Next slide then, please, Nauza. So let's move on to, again, something that I think should be obvious, and that is gain creators. So what does your product or service, what does your value proposition do, or should it be doing, that helps the customer or client be very, very positive, be very uplifted, be joyous about what is happening in their interaction with you, and that what you are providing is helping and is creating gains for them. But these gains need to be aligned, the creation of these gains need to be aligned with the things that they want. If you are creating gains in areas that they don't want or don't need, then you're going to have a little bit of an issue with them perceiving your value, because all they are likely to see is a load of things that they don't want. So again, it's back to that. Focus on the customer, focus on the outcomes, focus on the jobs to be done and the gains that they are seeking to make from that. So just to the exercise sheet, please, Nauza. So on the right-hand side, gain creators. What are you doing? Creating them savings. How are you helping them produce those outcomes that they're wanting to have? How are you helping them fulfill their dreams, their desires, the things that they want to achieve? What are the positive outcomes that you are very clearly and definitely providing to match the things that they want to have happen in their business and indeed their lives? So again, this is something we really need to be focusing on, because this is the key part of your value proposition that you're going to be going to clients with and providing them with. I absolutely urge you to come back to these exercises and spend as much time as you can on thinking them through and working them through. And when you've done that, what you should have, if we go to the next slide now, please, Nauza, is a products and services proposition. You should begin to be learning what are the products and services that you can provide to your customers, to your prospects, to the marketplace that you're seeking to go into, that are going to be of value to them. And as that second sentence says, products and services don't create value alone, only in relationship to particular customer segments and those specific jobs, pains, and gains that they are seeking to have. And we're going to look at that under sales enablement, but it's looking at something being very, very specific. This is the reality of designing products and services. Now, you may well have a business that's up and running. It may be a few months, it may be a few years old, and you already have some products and services. And it might be difficult to think in terms of completely designing or redesigning what you are doing. So think of this in terms of adapting what you're doing, amending what you're doing, adding to what you're doing, maybe taking away from what you're doing if it's not proving to be of any real value. You may have started with a plan, you may have started with an idea, but this is an opportunity to review, rebuild, to help your recovery. The army says a plan only works up to the point you engage with the enemy. And that great business guru and philosopher Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they're punched in the face. So I hope that lightens things for you a little bit, but this is the part where you come back to say, okay, can we redesign and look at our products and services? And it's a circular activity. So you will return to pains and gains. You will return to pain relief and gain creation. You'll return to testing out the market fit, and you will come back to devising products and services. So now, if we could go to the next slide, please, which is an extension of our exercises so far. Next slide, please, Nauza. So there's a further exercise which we're waiting for, and until the slide arrives, it's very simply, no, you've gone too far. There should be a slide on products and services exercises. Thank you. So on the left-hand side here are the products and services. I've rejiggled the order of the slides because it's the products and services that come after you're looking at your pain relievers and gain creators. So think in terms of the products and services that you can offer by how important they are to your customer. What's essential, what's nice to have, what's good for them, but what's essential. So there's been some very, very important exercises there that I think we've covered in about 20 minutes, which is nothing like enough time. And so I repeat something I said a little while ago. I really do urge you to take these away. I urge you to return to the jobs to be done exercise so that you can get some real value from spending the time that you're spending with us this morning. So just to end this particular section before we go on to sales enablement, I've just got a couple of slides here. So if you could move to the next one, please, Nauza. Which is the value proposition fit slide. And this is all about bringing it together. So those 6 things that we've talked about. So on the right-hand side, customer jobs, pains, gains. On the left-hand side, gain creators, pain relievers, products and services. Print this off if you print nothing else off and look at how things are matching. If you like, this should be a takeaway exercise for you to do. You want to be answering these sorts of questions. What value do we deliver to customers? What customer problems do we solve? What needs are we satisfying? What outcomes have we identified? What jobs to be done is the client trying to undertake? And the one phrase that I like, and I will return to this, how is the customer better off by engaging with us? How is the customer better off by engaging with us? Because the one thing I can promise you is if you don't know, they certainly won't. And that's all down to your value proposition. And as a final summary slide, if you would move on to the next one, please, Nauza. So we've got 5 very quick things here, if you like, tips. Number 1 is 2 separate building blocks. It's what you design and what you see the customer wants. Don't mix the customer segments. And we're going to look at that in sales enablement in a couple of minutes. Look at the customer segments before building your value proposition. That's number 3. Number 4, there are jobs that are other than functional. There are jobs that are other than financial. So emotional jobs, feelings, personnel, environmental. And number 5, again, we're going to move on and look at this in a moment. Don't try and do everything that you think you could do or should do that a customer might need. You're just going to have to focus in on certain things. And that's what we're going to look at under sales enablement. So that's the first part, probably about 2/3 of the way through of what I wanted to be talking about. We're going to move on now to this concept of sales enablement. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Nauza. Sales enablement. You may or may not have come across this term. So what is it? It's really about applying your value proposition. So these are the practicalities in applying your value proposition. And in terms, if you like, of business models and a little bit of theory, it's that link between marketing and selling, and it's moving from marketing to selling. So it's getting the right product and services in front of the right customers and clients. That's your market fit in situations where they're most likely to buy. And that's what we're going to look at through the 3 key concepts that I'm going to turn to in a minute. Whatever it is that you're doing as marketing now needs to create sales. And that's what we're going to look at. The 3 key concepts are about finding your niche and being able to focus your energy and time and financial investment on areas or an area where you're most likely to get the best return on that investment. If we could move on then, Nauza. So 3 key concepts. This is the first one, ideal clients. It's being able to identify who your ideal, who your best clients are. And it's not just everybody. Whoever wants my business, whoever wants my product or service, they can have it. Now, you may well follow that as people approach you, but what we're going to look at here is a little bit more, look right at the bottom of the slide, about outbound prospecting, going out to people, going out to potential customers, potential clients, going out to prospects. So the first key concept is knowing who these customers, these key customers and prospects are. So if you're a business to business operation, it's their size, whether that be turnover, employees, what sector they're in, where they're located, the geography, how much money they've got, what's the likely spend on your products and services, because you might want to eliminate people who are unlikely to have much money to spend on your products and services. If you're business to consumer, B2C, you're looking a little bit more detail, though these things still apply to B2B, at demographics, at age, at hobbies and interest, finances, those sorts of things that are more personal, and they might be the things that you want to focus in on. It'd be great if you could get to a group that actually communicate with each other, and could you help them do that? Could you be a conduit to helping them work together, to helping them communicate with each other? You might want to go away and look up, it's something called account-based marketing. And that's where you build a silo, a group of ideal prospects that you can dig deep on, you can do a lot of research on, you can focus down on, so that you know that they are the right people, and you can be right in the ballpark when you are wanting to make contact with them and go to them with your proposition. When you can identify them and you can approach them, that's a lot more about selling skills. That's a completely different webinar. So we're not going to look at that today, but we are going to look at developing a little bit more about how you might be able to do that. And if we go on to the next slide, please, Nauza. And this next slide is all about situations. And the concept is that situations reveal needs. Now, what does this mean? We all know that we should be aiming our products and services at what customers need, because if they don't need what your product or service is, what are you doing trying to get in touch with them? They have to have a genuine need for you. You can't create a need, you can uncover one, and that's what a lot of selling is about. But if the customer doesn't have a need, you shouldn't be there. But what is most likely is the customer doesn't recognize that they have a need. And the simple, most obvious example of this is that they don't know they need you at the moment, do they? Otherwise, they'd have been on the phone, they'd have been on the email, they'd have been knocking on your door. But what they will know, or what they will be able to recognize, is situations that they might well be in. And situations are things that they are experiencing and that will allow them, once they're encouraged to do so, to recognize that they have a need. So on the right-hand side, you've got some examples. So it's the triggers, events that are situations that people would recognize in a business, particularly where they've had people come in or people go out, especially at a high level, whether they've won contracts, all those sorts of things that are going to help the client realize that there's something they might need to take a look at. And if you look at the left-hand side again, what I've got is an X factor. I like to do this on a reveal usually, but it's there, an X factor to help you, because you will want to, and you will inevitably talk a lot about what you have to offer, but that's of no value unless it's relevant to the client. So what I've done here is I've taken the word content, which is you talking about what you have to offer, and turned the N into an X. That's your X factor. what is the context in which you are talking to the client? And would you believe it? It's about jobs to be done and outcomes. That's the context for what you should be talking to the client about. Without that, there's nothing of value. So very quickly, I'm going to go on to an exercise. So the next slide, please, Nauza. I mean, this is a reality in that you could well be taking this away, because this is research that you need to be doing. So think about your own marketplace, think about existing customers. What situations could they find themselves in, or do find themselves in, that you can help with? Think in terms of events, circumstances, triggers. And you must keep working on this to help you identify where your product or service is going to fit with the potential clients. And most importantly, it's going to help the client identify that they might have a need for your product or service. Because if they don't, you're not going anywhere with them. Take that exercise away and spend time on doing it. So next slide, please, Nauza. And this next slide is a return to our old friend. When we get there, are we returning to our old friend, Nauza? In our next slide, we're returning to our old friend, outcomes. So what is the value proposition? It's all about the pain relievers and gain creators. It's not about features and benefits or differentiators, all those sorts of things, which we could get to at a later stage, but it's about the outcomes that clients want to achieve. How is the customer better off by engaging with you? I'm going to repeat that till the cows come home, because if you don't know that, they won't. What jobs are you helping them get done? What outcomes are you helping them achieve? And then at the bottom there on the left-hand side, very, very much a sales statement that we're not going to go into at all today, but its outcomes are needs that clients want. And that's how you move clients from having situations to realizing that that's a need, and then wanting to satisfy and fulfill that need. Very much a sales statement. But look at the bottom one, take a walk in their shoes. And that's where you need to put yourself in order to align with client outcomes. So I'm very, very nearly finished. That's been a long old session for you. That's been maybe 45 minutes, which I appreciate is a long time to just sit and listen to one person speaking. So I've just got two very, very quick slides to wrap up on now. So if we could go to the next one. And this is your niche. So take those three key concepts that we've just looked at, your ideal client, situations they might find themselves in, and the outcomes that they're looking to achieve. And that I is where you should be focusing your time, your effort, your energy, your finances. And then finally, Nauza, the next slide, which is my final slide. I just want to focus a little bit on what we have done. So the summary here is that we've looked at the value proposition design and canvas. We looked at a basic canvas model. We looked at the components, which were jobs to be done, pains and gains, pain relievers and gain creators, how that can help you get a market fit, how you can then design products and services that will succeed. We've just looked at sales enablement. which is moving from marketing to sales to be able to apply your value proposition. Those three key concepts: ideal customers, situations, and outcomes, and that niche in the middle, which is the jobs that they want to be done and where you should be focusing. So throughout this last 45 minutes, I hope you've got some good input, some ideas, some practicalities. I hope you can be more effective in what you're doing. I hope you can continue to build the regeneration and recovery through 2021 and 2022. And I would absolutely implore you to take these two takeaways and spend time on them. What are the jobs that your customers want to get done that you can help with? And for, I think, the third time of saying, how is the customer better off by engaging with you? So that's me done. I hope that's been useful, and I will just hand back to Nauza for some final to finish off.
Thank you, Nigel. That's excellent. The link between developing your products and your services and how to really essentially get them out there. Invaluable. I hope you've learned from the exercises. We will be sending you a copy of the slides. There's a lot to be said for looking at these slides again, especially the exercises. Will be sent to you by tomorrow. So I'm going to wrap up now with a few slides, just to conclude on that. So here we are. We are at webinar number 3. I want to talk to you very briefly about what's basically coming up later on this month. We'll talk about what's later on this year a little later. We're taking a break in August, and then we've got a couple of great sessions in September. But in 2 weeks' time, Wednesday, same time in the same place, as it were, Increasing Your Online Presence by Chris McNeil. And who is Chris? Chris is actually he's a guru. He's a writer. He's got a bestseller. He writes on Amazon, and he's got a bestseller on Amazon. So he must be doing something right. You want to attend this. If you want to learn about selling on Amazon, he'll firstly look at the larger sort of marketplace, the e-commerce place. But he's an expert. He's a certified expert on selling on Amazon, and he's done great workshops for Hertfordshire Chamber, for Hounslow Chamber, and now we've got him as an associate to do a workshop for us. And if you've got a product or service which you're considering selling on Amazon, or you want to adapt, you want to pivot, you want to launch something new, great opportunity. Okay. In addition to that, we've got one-to-one business advice sessions. But this is a team. Some of you, most of you will already have been contacted by one of these lovely people, and they will spend an hour with you. They'll find out what you want to do next, where you are, what you've learned. They'll also urge you to attend the other sessions, which I would urge you to do as well. And based on their first session, they'll come up with an action plan, or you will come up with an action plan with them, and hopefully help you to reboot, regenerate, to take advantage, I keep saying, of post-Brexit and post-pandemic opportunities. The business world, we know it, is not going to be the same. It's evolving fast. Technology is evolving fast. Rules and regulations are changing. So use these opportunities. These are gold dust, very valuable opportunities, are funded opportunities for you to speak to an advisor and just bounce off some ideas. Look at your thought process, look at your strategy, and come up with something new for your customer segments. So on that basis, we come to the last slide. Hope it's been an enjoyable a session, a valuable one as well. Any questions you have on chat, feel free to enter them in. Anything you want to say, good or bad, any feedback would be appreciated. And we look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time at the next session. Okay, so Nigel, last few words, please.
Yeah, I genuinely hope that you have got from that. I appreciate that I am very straight down the line, sometimes a little bit harsh, sometimes a little bit heavy. But if you extract the positives from that, then you will gain enormously, and that's absolutely what I want you to do.
Okay, Joe, to answer your question, yes, we'll send the links, tomorrow. The links for next in a couple of weeks, and then the links for August will follow as well. Great. Many thanks, everybody. No other questions. I will end the webinar now. Look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. These links, by the way, are open links. So when you receive these links, send them on to anybody you wish. These are open links. Anybody can attend. Okay. Many thanks all. See you all soon. Thank you. Bye.
Nauza, could you stay on, please? And anybody?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Will do.
Anybody else from Branduin who is logged in? If you could stay on also.